Let's do this. So, we're continuing on with our little Doom exploration.
Yes,
And I figured that the next most appropriate thing to show him was the making of this music. And I'll get your valuable input on that, because you know more about this than I would, or a lot of people would, most certainly.
Well, I know a bit, so we'll see. We will see. I would really like, I'm very interested in like seeing what Mick did on the first Doom. I think I've seen the other one before, but I still want to do what I think about it, because I haven't seen it in a long time.
I know that during the music videos for Rip and Tear and BFG Division in particular, you can also see some of his process of what he was doing during the music video, I believe. So maybe that's worth some time.
Yeah, that would be cool.
But, yeah, we'll just dive straight into this. This is the making of Doom 2016, Part 1 and 2. And then, after that, I'm going to follow it up with Eternal's making of, which is essentially Mick Gordon's metal choir.
That sounds amazing.
Oh, yeah. You might see some faces you recognize on that one.
Okay.
But, yeah.
I want to see his guitar. I want to see his whole rig.
Oh, you're going to see it on here.
Let's go. Let's do it.
Alright. We'll jump into this.
Get geared up, boy. I need these?
Yes.
You can't just watch it.
Well, this is probably the easiest way to capture the audio.
Ah.
That and I can hear it clear as day from those headsets, and thankfully we have a noise canceller.
Ooh. We have a noise canceller.
Oh, yeah. Alright. So, here is the making of Doom 2016 soundtrack. Crank that down. Is that good?
Oh my god, yeah. What does he
Doom
have?
carries a really, really, really strong legacy. Doom set such a high bar when it originally came out. It set the trajectory for modern first-person shooters that we know today. When you're dealing with such a strong legacy, it's really important to treat that with the utmost respect.
E1M.
That original
I remember that.
E1M1 riff is iconic. It is Doom. I wanted to find a way to kind of make that bigger and bolder. The first thing I did was made the riff a little bit lower.
First thing I did was make the riff lower. Yes!
When you play the riff back lower, it feels more aggressive already.
Excellent choice.
Oh.
But I kind of felt that it needed to be lower still. I got hold of a 9-string
snap.
guitar.
A 9?
Lower.
Oh, he has
Then what I
bat
was able
fret
to do
markers.
was reconstruct E1M1 using the 9-string guitar while still incorporating
That's
those
terrifying.
4 original notes.
The bat fret markers are so cool. Ooh. Oh, what's the tuning? That's a bass string on the bottom of that guitar. Because it's so low that it would just break, or it would just not sound good on a normal guitar
Doom
string.
is here. It's claustrophobic. It's aggressive. It's brutal. It's tactile. It drills into your face. It's piercing. It's at you.
At you, yeah. Rip and tear. Wow. That 9-string is
The music
gnarly.
in Doom really just tries to capture that complete lack of restraint. It's up close and personal. You have your hand down the throat of the demon. You're not hiding behind cover and running away scared.
God, that's so heavy!
I wouldn't be scared if I was listening to this. I'd be like, yeah!
The MIDI soundtrack of the original Doom did a brilliant job of combining technology with metal. I was inspired by that to kind of see where we could take electronic music in 2016.
Metal. Oh.
Jeez. That's really heavy. Good lord. His whole
Doom's
setup is
gameplay is
wild.
a really dynamic experience. You go from fighting demons in close quarter combat environments to fighting hordes of demons in massive, vast areas. As you're playing, the music changes to reflect the situation that you're in.
Oh yes.
Yep. That's my favorite song. That's the best song he ever made.
I gotta
Hands
say.
down. That one already has a 10, but I want to do it anyway. I just want to hear it again.
Guess we'll show you the music video.
Man.
MickGordon.com.
Yeah, so he even, like, when he was talking about it, was like, I wanted to add more synthesizers. I wanted it to sound... He was like, it's really, like, in your face and, like, at you. That, like, really stood out to me. Because it was like, yeah, like, he, like, got the entire memo. Like, he did a fantastic job on that soundtrack. It carried the game through, like, further than it would have if he didn't do it. That was awesome.
Absolutely. When you're looking at, like, that giant board where he just has all these cables going on there, do you have an idea of what's going on there?
Yeah, he's got, well, it's like his interface. Honestly, there was a lot of stuff on there that I was like, what is he doing? Like, there's like, I didn't know what the stuff was that was like plugged in.
The yellow board?
Like the yellow cables and stuff. I was like, I assume that's like from his MIDI or something. Like, I know what MIDI is when you plug that in, and like when you hook up your instruments and stuff, or like when you use VSTs, which are on like they're like electronic instruments that you use. And I don't really know what that thing was. I assume it's like some kind of like synthesizer. I'd have to see it again.
I think in part 2, I know somewhere he talks about it, and I think he said that he specifically went out to kind of make just the weirdest sounds through, I think it was a old Soviet era instrument.
That's what it looked like. It looked old because there was like all these cables sticking out of it, and I've never seen anything like that. So like, it did something that he had looked like a weird like computer from like Fallout or something.
Right.
Like, I don't really know what that is. I assume it's like it makes synthesizer noises or something. I assume it like makes weird noises, and he can mess with those in the studio. But I don't know. I'd like to see him talk about that too.
So,
Part 2?
Part 2, let's
Dose?
see if this maybe elaborates a little bit more.
Part 2. Oh, yeah. There it is.
Hell in Doom is just horrifying. It's ancient and threatening and violent. It's a nightmare. I was really inspired
Peak
by
brutality.
There it is again.
monolithic structures that are kind of broken
like a jump
to the
scare.
point where you can actually see the energy that's holding these structures together. I thought, like, what would this energy sound like? And how could I use that in the music? I came up with
Exactly.
this idea of breaking sound down into its kind of bare bones components, which are sine waves and
Yes.
noise. I then pulsed rhythms of sine waves and noise through vast arrays of analog equipment.
Analog equipment. Oh, all of that is analog
The idea
synthesizers and
wasn't
pedals
to
and
use
stuff.
the analog
Holy
equipment
crap.
as an effects processor, even though that's kind of what it's made for. Basically, I'm using the circuits of the equipment to corrupt the pure sine waves and noise.
Oh.
Yeah, he's distorted. Those noises, those are just like normal. Like if you were to just play the note and you didn't put anything on it, it would just sound like this, like it would sound like a note like you'd play on the piano. And he took those noises and he just like messed them up so that they would sound like that. It's really cool. That's what guitars do. Like when you hear that metal sound, it's called distortion. And they're basically just taking a clean guitar noise and you're messing it up so that it
I found a
sounds
bunch of interesting
like-
equipment that did really interesting things
like
to
that.
any sound that I heard.
I don't know how to describe it, but
An old
Yeah.
reel-to-reel tape machine, old cassette machines with crappy cassettes. I found all sorts of old guitar pedals that were really bizarre and obscure and did all sorts of weird things to the sounds.
Yeah,
Electricity is a
wow.
real, tangible
Dang.
thing. You've got electrons bouncing around on a circuit, and when you capture that, you're capturing a real energy.
Oh my gosh.
There we go.
I wish I had this guy's job.
I found a old Soviet synthesizer from the 80s called Apollovox. It's really big and heavy and over-engineered and it weighs a
that's
ton.
like
It's full of character.
that's like stuff that Daft Punk
But
used.
to speak Russian
No,
and
they didn't
operating
use
it
like
is
that,
kind
probably.
of a bit of an adventure. But I really love the sound of it. It sounds
I bet that
real.
was so fun.
It looks like it'd be so cool to jack with.
Oh, that's so cool.
Okay.
So, all of that stuff he has, 666. That's so unique.
Man.
He had it set to 666. Wow. So, instead of just using a synthesizer like off the internet that he found or something, or that you can find within like a recording software, he actually just had all of those pedals and was just like turning knobs, and he was like, "Ooh, this sounds cool." That's awesome, especially that thing, because he said he doesn't speak Russian, so he's probably just sitting there like moving the knobs and was like, "Oh, that sounded cool." Like, I have no idea what I did. He just probably like just went like this. That's so cool. That's really cool.
Do you find that there's a degree of that in music whenever you're just kind of working, you're like, I don't know what this does, let me just, jack around with it and
Oh yeah.
see what happens?
A lot of the stuff on my band's album was just like thought of that day at the studio. It was just like, what if we did this? And we just like threw it on there. And I guess it sounds good. I don't know. But like a lot of the piano and stuff off my album was like, we were just like, we don't know what to do here. Throw some piano or throw some strings on it or do something. Or we threw like weird synthesizer noises. There's actually a track nobody listens to on it. It's called Arrival. And I made that up on the piano. And I just was there with my producer and I was telling him like, hey, just like make it sound weird. Like, I don't know, just like we're going to make it sound weird. And he just started doing stuff to it. And then I was like, wait, that's it. But it's just an outro track, so nobody nobody listens to it. It's like the least popular thing on the album, but I was like, I liked it a lot. That was like one of my favorite things to do, was just to make that little thing at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of music is just like it's all experimentation. Even if you knew exactly what you're doing, it's just like experimenting and being like, ooh, like how can I make that sound weird? Like just like something I've never heard before. Or like what I do sometimes is like I'll be going for a kind of sound. I'll be like, ooh, I want it to sound like this. Like if I hear a song I like, I'm like, ooh, I want to make something like that. Then I go to make it and it comes out completely different. Everything gets messed up. Like I said, like you just turn dials and you're doing this and that, and then you get to a point where you're like, ooh, yeah, that sounds good. And by the end of it, you just have this complete like amalgamation of just stuff that is all you, and that's like the coolest part of it.
Yeah. And another thing is, after actually seeing that, can you now like visualize how he's doing a lot of this music, or have an idea of what's going on?
I know. At first, I was like, what is all that stuff? Because like I use electronic VSTs, because a lot of people like me, they don't have like money to just like go out and buy a new pedal. So some people have these like, they're old pedals like that, and they're just like recorded noises, and you can use like samples or VSTs to play it yourself. And so, but it's crazy because he just like has all of those pedals, and he's just like plugging it in and turning dials. And he had them put up into like a pedal board, which is cool because you can like combine pedals. So like who knows what even he like combined to make that. It could be like this one or that one, or like all of them. Like I watched this video one time of this guy. He had his pedal board set up and he ran his guitar through every single pedal. It was like 20 different pedals, and it just sounded so weird. but he just was like playing the guitar on it, and he was like, "This sounds so whack." So he would like turn on one pedal, and it was a distortion pedal, and that was nice. Then he'd turn on two pedals, and it would get really weird. And by the end of it, it was like this wall of just like TV static, pretty much. It was really cool. I'll have to find the video, but
That is pretty interesting, though. And for those who are maybe less enlightened, can you also elaborate on is there going to be a distinct difference between analog and digital sound? And what even is analog for those who might not be aware?
analog is just like the hardware, like the actual instrument. So like, I don't have a violin or a cello. On my album, I have tons of strings. I have like a whole like orchestra thing, and that's not analog because I didn't go like call up all the cello and violin players I know and be like, "Hey, come to the studio. We're gonna like record it," which would be like analog, which is more of like the actual instrument being played. But analog synthesizers is actually just a synthesizer that makes that noise. You can make that noise come out of there, and those are just what he's using. It, like he said, it's just sine waves. And then distortion pedals and such altered that sound to make it what you hear on the actual game. So, like, I don't know if anybody's ever listened to like Daft Punk or anything. They do a lot of like, they have a lot of like sine stuff in their music, especially like the earlier stuff. Like the 80s had like a lot of just like raw synthesizer noises. Like when you'd see somebody on stage and they're playing the keyboard, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, analog, I wouldn't say there's like a difference really, because you can get all that stuff now. You can get like electronic versions of those. They're not going to be like super good, but there's some that also you can buy that are like $300, and it's an electronic version of kind of the stuff he was using. And, dang, my stomach's growling. And he took those and just messed them up pretty much. And that's really cool to see, because you can tell how much experimentation went into his productions, which is really cool to me.
Oh, yeah. So that's a pretty good look at what created the 2016 soundtrack.
Yeah, lots of synth.
Oh,
Lots of synth.
do you think that's would you want to... Oh, no, it's fine, because we're going to do the Eternal one, but... One last question. So actually seeing that, do you think that if you actually tried your hand at it, you could try and produce a Doom sound, a sort of...
The synthesizers, probably. The guitar tone, maybe. I'd have to buy something. I might be able to. I don't know. I haven't been doing metal lately, but I've been doing like a different song. But yeah, I would say that I could probably make the synth noises kind of... I don't know. It depends on like what I want to make. If I want to make this or that, I could do something. I could mess with it. You just gotta it's all just pushing buttons up and down until something sounds good. So, I mean, that's all producers do. Some people know a bit more about what they're doing, but most of the time they're just like, oh, like, let's just turn that up or turn this down, or like, boot, 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 boot. Like add reverb and stuff. There's obviously like musical things that you do.
Oh, yeah.
In the studio, like, oh, we're going to add like reverb, we're going to like add like delay on this part, which is just like functions in the studio. It's a lot to explain. There's a lot of like studio stuff that happens. Like everybody that sings, they have like some form of like delay or reverb on their voice. That's how they get it to sound like kind of echoey. Like you can kind of hear it, but that's just so that like it sounds good.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain. It's not auto-tune, but it's a form of that. But
Okay. Now, for the last one. This is
everybody is ready.
how it was done for Eternal, but it's mostly focused on his Met choir. So,
Okay. All right. I wonder if there's anybody I know. I don't know. I live under a rock. There's the man.
My name's Mick Gordon.
Compression
I'm
mics.
here in beautiful Austin, Texas, to record a heavy metal choir for Doom Eternal.
1, 2, check.
It's a continuation of Doom 16, but this really needs its own unique approach.
Oh,
We'd already
candles.
discussed some chants.
You gotta go
that
all
harkens
out,
back
dude.
to
Oh, that's
Slayer's
awesome.
Origins. The idea of taking a heavy metal choir and having them do the chant for the Slayer was amazing.
The big question is, right, how do you put together a heavy metal choir? And the best way that we figured out how to do it would be to put out an open call and invite heavy metal singers to apply to join this awesome ensemble of badasses.
I'm the vocalist of The Anchor.
The frontman for 2 different bands. I'm in a band called The World I Knew, trap metal.
I'm the vocalist for Wild Speaker.
Oh, Static X. I know him.
Ministries.
This is like a really classical franchise, especially within the rock and metal community. Like everybody just looks up to this game.
Part of the game is this like ancient chant.
Atmosphere is
that's
even
in this
there.
other language. We want
Whoa.
the whole game to feel like a heavy metal album experience.
That's so cool.
Every
He's
time I
like
get a drop,
directing it.
I hit play and I'm like, oh, this is freaking amazing.
The group that we ended up putting together is really diverse. There's so many different types of metal singers there.
To see the choir be half female, half male, it's been really awesome.
He's working with 20 other people, not just one person.
It's a very
I know that
different,
guy.
way of recording.
Not
To hear
personally, I just
all those
I know of
guttural
him.
voices all around you. You know, it's really fucking cool.
I used to listen to Static X
All
on
the
racing
anger
games.
and energy, it feels right.
I think as humans,
They're
we
like-
always relate to voice. So it sort of touches
They're
us
like
on a
speaking
deeper level.
Dovahkiin, bro. Like there's a
There's just
screwed
different styles,
off.
and it's
Like
cool to see all of it just come together and make this like really unique,
That's
amazing
awesome.
sound.
So there's a guy that does Mongolian metal, and I was just impressed of what he
Oh.
can do.
just Mongolian
Everything
throat
works
singing.
together. Sound effects, music, gameplay, and all these things come together not as separate elements, but as one cohesive unit.
I've always wondered what that would be like to hear a choir singing that way.
That guy's voice was so
We're gonna do
deep.
our own thing. We're gonna do it.
I had to be part of this, man. You kidding me? I grew up with Doom, and I got to play a little bit on the Atari Jaguar. I bought every edition, one of my favorite games of all time, and I love the soundtrack.
To be able to contribute to something that might get people into metal,
To me, it's a big
I know that
honor.
guy too.
I'm so excited to hear the end product.
Being part of the Doom soundtrack feels pretty legendary.
They're just as much a part of the process as any of us. Thank you so much. They're the ones that have kept Doom going for 25 years.
The helmet. Jeez, this game looks so fun. Dang, that was awesome. Great as hell. Dang. Yeah, that was really cool. The Long Center for Performing Arts. Performers. Wait. Let's see. Apotheca. I think I know them. Aborted.
Recognize all that.
Yeah, Fear Factory. Yeah, Tony Campus from Fear Factory. Crazy. Some of these I haven't heard of. I feel like I've heard of Arcane,
The name sounds vaguely familiar.
Hellstar, and Coma Cluster Void. Oh, I know Vault Dweller too. Now that I'm reading them, like I've never heard of like Tusco or The Anchor
Yeah.
or Immortal Bird. But I'm gonna have to check those out. Gonna have to check out their music now. Oh, I can hear again. Oh,
So
crazy.
I did realize that I don't think you really heard much of the his metal choir come into play yet, besides at the end of The Only Thing They Fear Is You. But you will be hearing it in other songs like Gladiator, for example, and then
Gladiator.
potentially the next one, Metal Hell. It's
Maybe.
been a minute or two, but yeah. I never would imagine the metal choir could come together and just sound that intense.
Yeah, they were just screaming and like yelling all this energy into like the air. Like you can just feel that that was really cool.
Oh yeah, it's gonna fit the mythos of the game where it shows more of the Slayer's background, and it kind of has a, how should I put it, an air of you're going into old ancient grounds and just going on a slaughter spree to prove yourself.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, man.
It's a lot more of the lore to it, and that absolutely fits it. The tone.
We should play it.
We will be.
We should play it.
So, all this considered, does this change the way that you think or look at the soundtrack now?
Oh yeah. I mean, I always loved the soundtrack, but now it's cool to see like what he did. Like now, like I mean, he almost did everything I was imagining. He took like this really unique take on it, and I think it's cool. Like when you're making music for something, you can kind of get out of your head and be like, what does this thing need? Like, what would I put into this if I was making that? And that's what he did. And I mean, he killed it. Because he was even talking about like looking at the world and like what does the world look like, and he like saw the energy between the structures, and he's like, well, what does that sound like? And that was cool. That's just the level of like what you have to think about when you're doing, especially a soundtrack for a game, and I think he did a killer job of it.
Oh yeah, there's a genuine love there and respect for the material, and it sounds like even the choir felt similarly.
Yeah, it sounds like they were all like really happy to be there. And that would be fun to just like yell into a mic.
Yeah, that's the kind of motivation and love that you need for something to really culminate into something amazing like the soundtrack did.
Right, like if as long as everybody's like in love with it, like it comes out better every time.
Absolutely, 100%. Because if you're doing it just for, I don't feel the motivation, I don't feel the drive behind it, it's gonna come out, half-baked.
Half-baked, yeah, exactly. When you go into a production, you want to do everything you can to make sure that it's like the best it can be, And it's easier when you get there and you're like in the creative space, because some days you're just like, you make something and you're like, yeah, it's good, but it's only like when you get there and like record it that you're like, oh, like when you're hearing it back to yourself, you can actually sit there and be like, oh, it needs this, or oh, it needs that. And that's like the magic of recording.
Okay. So, with all things considered, I think that about wraps this up, and it's might help you be looking at the next songs that we'll be listening to. So,
hell yeah!
Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed these kind of like breakdown and inside look at how it all works and how it's done, and input from a guy who definitely has an idea of what's going on.
Kind of knows. Yeah. People that know more than me.
For sure. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all, and everyone take care.